Greetings, do-it-yourselfers. Well, we have here today a 1995 Lexus SC400, I think it is. Yes, an SC400 that belongs to my neighbor right across the street, who is also a do-it-yourselfer and a gearhead like me. Maybe not quite as much so, but he's always doing stuff with his collection of cars. He's got an affinity for these Lexus SC models. He has, I believe, 4 of them. So he's always tinkering and doing some stuff. Well, this particular one that's in my garage had developed a no-start problem, an intermittent cranking no-start. And of course, being a do-it-yourselfer like me, he looks into it and he discovers that it's blowing a fuse, a 30-amp fuse. As time goes by, his resolution for it was just to have a fistful of fuses, but then it got to the point where it absolutely will not start, and every time you put a fuse in, as soon as you turn it to the on position, the fuse just blows. So that's when he came over to my house and asked me if I would take a look at it. You know, obviously we've got a pretty good head start. We know the issue is a fuse is blowing, and we know which fuse. So before the video, I did do some homework and looked up which fuse it is. It was a main, what was it? A main EFI, electronic fuel injection, a main EFI fuse, and pulled up a wiring diagram. And of course it's 95, so I don't have the advantage of being able to use my scan tools since the car is OBD1. But for this particular diagnosis being electrical, I don't think that's going to be as significant, although I guess it would be nice if I could pull up codes. Maybe I could see which component or something might have a low voltage reference code or something like that. But I won't be able to do that, so we're just going to kind of go in on this. And quite honestly, this is going to be pretty good for a lot of you guys who, you know, I always get these comments, the first thing I always do is check the fuses. I always check the fuses. First thing I do is check the fuses. And that's great. That's perfectly fine. But the problem is that for a lot of guys, that's more liagnostics than diagnostics, because it's not the first thing that most people do. It's the last thing they do, because once they find the fuse is blown, they don't know where to go from there. And also, if the fuse isn't blown, if the fuse is not the problem, yeah, they don't know where to go from there either, usually. So, you know, I get a lot of the comments when they watch me do electrical, you didn't check the fuses. And, you know, first of all, I did check the fuse. You just didn't realize it because I do it in a different way, because I want to multitask. Because like this situation, I want to not only find out if the fuse is blown, but why is it blown? What circuit is the issue? So that's what we're going to do in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Diagnostics. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I guess, is show you the symptom. It's going to be a cranking no start. So let's see. Grab the key here. Yep. And the battery's a little bit dead too. It was super cold today. It was actually our first below zero in Colorado. So I'm going to go ahead and get a charger on this thing. But as you can see, we do have a cranking no start. All right, let's get this battery charged up while we're working on it. Although I'm not going to be doing too many attempts to start it, because I don't want to use up all of the fuses that he gave me. But he did give me a bunch of fuses, because that was his way of resolving the issue. So I know it's going to be the 30-amp fuse right here. Let me go grab some stuff. Okay, let's get this out of the way here. Man, my garage is so crowded all the time. I really need to figure out how to do something about that someday. All right, charging up. Let's take a look at our fuse. This guy did save me a lot of time here. It's obviously this fuse here, because it's, let's get the light in there. It's not only blown, but you can see it's different than the other fuses. So obviously the one he replaced. Fuse is definitely blown. And what I did was identified it as the EFI fuse and pulled a wire diagram. So our complicating factor here is that there are a lot of components, I circled them in pink, that are on this circuit. And of course, what we're going to be looking for is a short to ground that would be blowing the fuse. This is not going to be a ground problem or an open ground or something like that. Occasionally get people saying, check your grounds, check your grounds. Well, I'm not going to check my grounds on this. This is definitely going to be a short circuit. But the problem is we've got a lot of components on here, and also the wiring between the components that are all variables. So how are we going to resolve this? So if we look here, we've got fuel injectors are on the circuit. So any fuel injector that's shorted out would do it, and that of course also would be a major potential hazard for the PCM. Idle air control is on there. Actually, any of these would be because they're on a 12-volt circuit. We've got transmission control solenoids on here. We've got all 4 oxygen sensors on here. And there were a couple other things on here. Where are they? Oh, fuel pressure valve evap is on here, and EGR valve is on here. So any or multiple of those, or the wiring in between, would be our suspect. So we've got a lot of variables here. While that battery charges up for a bit, I'm going to tell you about a couple of the strategies that I'll use in this situation for when you do find a fuse is blown, where you go from that step. And the other thing, too, is for you guys over on the pay channel real quick, yes, I did think this car is going to be a prime candidate for our Diagnosis and Understanding series on the 5-volt reference, but unfortunately it is not. It follows that same paradigm that we discussed that most cars do, where you don't have that branching as we described. But do keep in mind, though, that concept is actually, if you think about it, the same thing as what we have here. It's just a 12-volt source instead of the 5-volt reference, but it's still the same thing. Anything that blows the fuse anywhere on that circuit has that effect on everything, right? So not exactly the same, I guess, but still pretty similar. So just keep those concepts in mind that we learned as I go through this diagnosis. Strategies. So there are a couple of strategies that I will employ in a situation like this where there's a lot of variables. One of them is a strategy that actually is very effective that you can use just in your home electrical, and that is how you find the appliance or whatever it is on a circuit that would be causing a circuit breaker to trip. So for example, you've got your kitchen would be a good example. There's usually a lot of appliances there. Let's say you've got 16 appliances in your kitchen, and out of nowhere the circuit breaker keeps tripping off. As soon as you flip the circuit breaker, it trips right off. So as you know, one thing a lot of people do is they'll unplug appliances one at a time until the circuit breaker no longer trips. And that's fine. That's totally good strategy. A better and quicker way, though, is something like what I'm going to try to employ here. And that is to just unplug half the appliances, maybe the half that's easiest to get to, and unplug half the appliances, flip the circuit breaker. If the breaker no longer trips, your issue is one of those 8 appliances. So you've cut your variables in half. One of those 8 appliances was your issue. You can plug them in one at a time, or even better yet, plug in 4 of them. If the circuit breaker now trips, it's one of the 4 you plugged in. You now only have 4 variables. So that's a very quick, efficient way of doing it. So we can actually employ this same exact strategy on the car, because the same thing, a fuse is blowing. So if we unplug half of the components and the fuse no longer blows, the issue is with one of the components that we unplugged, and we can narrow our variables there. So that is the strategy we're going to do. Now keep in mind, we can do this strategy because the fuse is blowing. Remember, the crank no start is the result of the fuse blowing. You want to be careful, about how effective this strategy can be in other situations. If we didn't have a fuse blowing and this was a crank no start, well, doing that wouldn't work quite as easily, because if you unplug the fuel injectors, you still have a crank no start, right? But with us, unplugging the fuel injectors, if we no longer have the fuse blow, that's a different thing. Sure, it would still crank no start, but the fuse may not blow. And if that happens, we know one of the fuel injectors is the issue. So the other nice thing about that strategy is we can make this easy by going to all of the components that are easily accessible on top of the car, not even get dirty, not have to change shirts, not have to get under the car. And if we get lucky, we'll find what's blowing the fuse there. The other strategy that I'll use, and quite honestly, in this example, given the data that I have here, I would actually more zero in based on intuition and experience. And for me, intuition and experience, while not very extensive as a do-it-yourselfer, is enough that I am really interested more in the oxygen sensors, because these are heated oxygen sensors, so I know they're on a 12-volt circuit. And just by definition, the oxygen sensors are going to be under the car. They're constantly in a harsh environment, especially in Colorado at this time of year too, with snow and ice constantly being sprayed up into them. Oxygen sensors, by definition, are going to be adjacent to exhaust components, so there's plenty of opportunity to contact hot exhaust components, get melted wiring. Of all of the components that were listed as being on this circuit here, the oxygen sensors, overwhelming by far to me, seem the most likely. So if I wasn't filming, I would actually go right for the oxygen sensors, because I believe that's most likely to be the problem. But for the purpose of filming and just to show you the technique a little better, we're going to go back to the engine bay, and I'm just going to do the first strategy and unplug some of the components. So actually, the first thing I want to do is I want to sacrifice a fuse just to be sure that we can reproduce the symptoms here, so that if I unplug half of the components and the fuse no longer blows, well, I need to rule out that the fuse wouldn't have blown anyway. So as we can see, this fuse definitely blown. We've got quite a number of them available to me. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the key to on. Just leaving the key on. And want to see, oh man, it blew as soon, the instant that I touched the fuse, it blew. You can maybe see that, I'm not sure. But it blew the instant that I touched in there. So that confirms that we still have the situation, which is good for us. A lot of people would hope that that didn't happen so they can continue to drive the car. We, of course, want that to happen so we can confirm diagnosis. So let me get another fuse. Well, first, let me turn off the car. Okay, he gave me plenty of fuses, so we've got 7 attempts, I believe, to fix this. We're going to do it much sooner than that. Okay, got our new fuse in place, and here is the plan. Let's, where'd my wiring diagram go? Oh yeah, EGR was one. EGR is right here. So that's an easy one. There's evap right there. We got evap. What else was on here? We've got solenoids for the transmission. That's not going to be reachable from up top here. I'm not quite sure where that is. Let me see. Well, definitely not on this side. Let me squeeze by here. And it's so crowded. I need a bigger garage, man. Okay, so that's, again, one of the beauties of this procedure. That's going to be one we're going to leave behind. And if we still blow a fuse, that'll be on our list. Oh, there's the idle air control. That was definitely on the list, I remember. Okay, and what else did we have on there? Oh, fuel injectors were on there. How easy are those to get to? Not so much on this model. So we're going to leave the fuel injectors, and again, I'm kind of not suspecting those as much. Where else did we have? We got the IAC, transmission, and then we got, there's fuel pressure valve. I'm actually not sure what that means. It says a fuel pressure up valve. So let me see if I can find something on the fuel rail that would be such a thing. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that would be. There's another evap solenoid right here while I'm at it, but that's not going to be what I'm looking for, but we still need that off of the list. Yeah, I don't see anything that would indicate like electronic fuel pressure regulation or something along the fuel system, so we'll leave that one as a variable. And quite honestly, if none of these do it, I'm going to probably start with the oxygen sensor anyway, since that's by far the most likely. Did I put a new fuse in here? I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah, we got new fuse, so let me turn the car to on. All right, car is on. Oh, did you hear that? You probably could have heard it, but it blew the instant I touched it. Fuse blew. So what we're going to do is rule out these components so I can put them back. These are not likely to be responsible. We can't totally eliminate it because, again, wiring between them could be an issue too, but the components themselves, at least, we can rule out. Let me go back over here. What else did I do? IAC. So unfortunately, this is not going to be as easy to repair when we find the issue, most likely, because I do believe it's going to be under the car, and this is a very crowded engine. Let's see, we've got fuel injectors, we've got the transmission control solenoids. That one might be easy to do, but I think I'm going to start with oxygen sensors. It makes the most sense to me. So let's go under the car. These under-car shots are not my favorite, I think most of you know. There's an oxygen sensor right there. Right there is an oxygen sensor, and I'm going to try to poke around, and what I'm looking for is trying to follow the conduit. This is not going to show up on camera too well, but I'm following the conduit. We can see it goes all the way up here, right there. The conduit looks like it may... Does that touch that exhaust manifold junction there? Let me get the light up in here a little bit. Looking for anything that's touching exhaust, or... I don't know that you guys are even seeing anything, but it is super tight in here. But this wiring here for this oxygen sensor is very hard to track up, but I don't know, there could be something there. Let me grab a screwdriver or something. So I'm gonna move this harness around a little bit, and I don't see anything. One of the things that would be nice is if it was more intermittent and it wasn't blowing the fuse. One of the things I like to do is to, I would put a fuse in, and then I would move this wiring around, and then when the fuse blows, I know I've got the right wire harness. I can tell you this one looks pretty decent, though. It's actually not running up against the exhaust manifold. Yeah, that, I can't be sure. Another thing I could do is maybe unplug the oxygen sensor. That in itself is hard to do. Here's an easy one back here. That's an easy one. Now, as you can see, this one goes up into the passenger compartment, so I'm not even worried about that one. If it's going in the passenger compartment, that is just so unlikely that that's going to be our issue. All right, let's go directly across, and we've got the other rear oxygen sensor. This is going to be, I believe, bank 1S2, and it also goes into the passenger compartment. So this one is going to be very, very unlikely, very low on the list there. So we'll move up to this one here. Where is the other one? There should be another oxygen sensor. Oh, there he is. There he is right there. Okay, so we can see that oxygen sensor. All right, where's this harness go? This harness goes and curls around. We can trace that. Oh, and there's our issue. I can see it clear as day. How easy was that? See, when you know what you're looking for, it's so much easier to do a visual inspection. What is this? This thing's right in my way of the camera here. But let's see if the camera can pick it up. Let me get the light in a better position. Oh man, that's totally it. Totally it right there. Okay, there's a good shot of it. So we can see we've got a totally melted wire harness. And I did pull it away from the engine a little bit. Let's see what we're dealing with here, but I kind of have an idea to prove this is it. Oh, look at that. It's totally melted. That's crazy. So anyway, I did pull it away from the engine a little bit. So what I'm thinking, let me make sure none of these wires are touching. Yeah, sorry for the camera work here, but I've got an idea to fix that. So right now, I don't believe the wires are grounding out. And what we're going to do, I'm going to go back up top. We're going to put the fuse in. First of all, the car is going to start. And then the other thing is I'm going to come back down here, ground those wires out. We're going to see it spark, and we're going to confirm that it blows that fuse. Okay, we don't need this charger anymore, so I can clear myself a little more room. Get the fuse. And I'm feeling pretty confident here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the car to on. Okay, let's confirm our no start still, of course, without the fuse. All right, the battery's good. So this car is going to start now. If this fuse blows, then those wires are still grounding out on each other or something. The whole harness is melting, and there's at least 2 broken wires. Ooh, did you hear that? Listen, listen. Let me do that again. That was a good sign. The fuse did not blow, but we heard the EFI components engage. So let's try that again. Let's listen. Yeah. This car is going to start now. Oh, did I just put a mini fuse in there? He had some mini fuses. Good grief. It's funny, it still works. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and do that because now I'm not so sure how many. Oh, no, we got a ton of standard fuses. Let me go ahead and. That's funny that the mini fuse fit. Let's pull that out and put in a standard fuse. So we only needed to burn 1 fuse to do our troubleshooting. All right, we'll just fit that with a standard fuse so we keep the guy consistent. Not worried about blowing that again because I know where my issue is. And let's start this car. Unbelievable. Is it just me, or do I seem to get this inordinate number of dead batteries that are not the problem? They just cause frustration in my videos. Yeah, 917 on the battery. This guy needs a new battery. All right, we'll let that charge up for a second. And actually, while we're at it, let's just double check that our fuse stays. Well, actually, it won't be blown now because we have the ignition off. But our fuse is good. So yeah, let's let this cook for a minute, and I guarantee you this car is going to start. All right, I think we may have had enough time on the charger. Let's go ahead and get this car started. And then confirm 100% that we were in the right area, as if that's not enough, but I got a cool idea. There it is. Alrighty. Ah, man, that never gets old, I have to say. That's always so satisfying when you figure it out. And you know you're going to figure it out. It's not just, hunting and pecking and throwing, firing parts out of the cannon or whatever. You know it's going to work. But I just want to confirm my independent variable, and it is indeed that fuse, which means it is absolutely that wiring. So here's what we're going to do. Just for fun, I'm going to leave this connected up to the charger because I know the battery's weak. I'm going to turn the ignition to on. And we are going to go underneath and blow this fuse. All right, hopefully I can catch this. Where's my screwdriver? This is so difficult to do, quite honestly. And there we go. I hope that showed up. Oh yeah, if that doesn't show up, then I suck at filming. Oh, did you hear it? I just blew the fuse, but hopefully that sparking showed up there and I could hear the fuse pop. So let's go up top. Alrighty, see the fuse is blown again, so 100% confirmation. That is a mess in there though. Oh, wait a minute. All right, that was actually pretty cool. It was my neighbor. He was going by and walked up because he heard the car start. So he was pretty excited, and I got to give him the good news. Except that the good news is we know what's wrong. Still has to be fixed. And quite honestly, there's that is not in a good location. Looks like I have to drop the catalytic converter at least. And I'm hoping not the exhaust manifold, but that couldn't have happened in a worse location. But then again, that's why those things happen in those locations, because it's so tight, and the proximity to very hot exhaust or exhaust shields that have sharp edges, things like that, can cause that. But looks like there's at least 3 wires broken there, so definitely have to replace that harness up to the oxygen sensor. And my guess probably, I imagine the oxygen sensor heater circuit also must have shorted out and burned up, I would imagine. So yeah, a lot of bolt turning, but you know, anybody can do that. It's that diagnosis and very quickly determining exactly where that problem is. That's what makes people go, wow, how did you do it, right? So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you next time.